2017. Can we start with a roll call? Jamie?
Tim Shinyon,
Here.
Jason Steenblock,
Here.
Jackie McNamara,
Here.
Jim Blake,
Here.
Jack McKenzie,
Yep.
Kathy Schulte,
Here.
and Terry Steenblock.
Here.
All right, wonderful. Next, we're looking to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion,
Second.
motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? That passes. Next, we have the open forum. Is anyone signed up for our open forum today? Or anyone out here want to speak today?
Nope, no one on the open forum.
Perfect. We'll move on to our regular agenda now, the Fenway Park discussion.
All right, just briefly before I jump into that, we have a new member here tonight, so just wanted to welcome Terry Steenblock on. This is her first official meeting here at the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission, so welcome to Terry. So being that she's new, I'll just kind of go over a little background, but tonight we just wanted to get the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission together just to inform everybody of some recent discussions regarding the Fenway Field 5 and just some maintenance concerns out at the Fenway complex. So just wanted to, again, early June, we had the Forest Lake Baseball Association address myself and the city with some concerns about the Field 5 infield, with some concerns regarding the turf on the infield and some safety concerns. From there, myself and Dave Adams did review the following day to check out the conditions ourselves and did note 50% turf or less, very dry conditions, and several weeds on the infield. So it was a concern. So then over the last month or so, this was addressed at our Fenway Advisory Board Committee meeting on June 27th. We have Jim Blake and Jack McKenzie, who are representatives of our Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission. They were in attendance at that meeting, and we did discuss the Field 5 infield maintenance concerns with Forest Lake Area Athletic Association President Al Hauge and the rest of the representatives from that board. Just towards the end of the month, the Forest Lake Area Baseball Association did confront me again, stating that the field conditions have not improved, and if not, had worsened. They were receiving complaints from other teams with safety concerns, and at that point in time stated that they were no longer going to play on the field until the safety concerns were addressed. So just with that, the city did have hired a professional sports turf manager in August to review the fields, and that letter was stated and shared with the Parks, Trails, Lakes Commission. And in short, basically reviewed field conditions and did state that the field was not deemed safe for play. So there was that confirmed report from a professional. We did meet with President of Forest Lake Area Athletic Association, Al Hauge, and did express those additional concerns and provided just a statement identifying the concerns out at Fenway Complex. So just recently, we've had last Friday we had a few other sports turf consultants and managers out at Fenway Fields providing some recommendations on how to improve that infield. So we did have come to a good solution on that, and we're going to move forward with a new resolution next week and get that improved for next season. So there's just a really short window of time where we can get this project done with seeding and whatnot. So we are going to move forward with that project and get that complete. With that being said, one of the tasks was to submit a maintenance plan for Fenway Fields. I didn't get a copy of that yesterday, so I just printed a copy today and handed it out. So just wanted to let everybody know, and that's kind of what's transpired over the last few weeks, and we're really looking at a way to move forward and how to get the field conditions improved, especially the infield at Field 5. Jack McKenzie and Jim Blake have been, with their professional backgrounds, have been extremely helpful in this process and providing their recommendations and professional experiences and opinions and helping guide this process along. So I feel really confident that the improvements we'll make to Field 5 will get it in shape for next season. So with that said, I just thought this evening, see if anyone has any questions, comments regarding that. And then again, if we wanted to kind of take some time to look over the field maintenance plan, I think just to make sure that there's any questions or concerns with that or anything you'd like to see additional. I think as a Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission, we really focus on safety as top priority. So making sure that our city parks are in safe, good playing conditions, and really to make sure that this kind of covers what we're looking for moving forward so we don't have that situation come up again.
Wonderful. Yep, any questions for Jamie or Aaron?
Yeah, I just have a quick question.
Sure.
of What are the current expectations? Like, do we do the mowing and some of the maintenance, or is some of it contracted out, or who's responsible for what currently? I'm just so I
Yep,
can
no,
get
this is the Fenway Management Agreement that was just renewed, that we finalized the contract in April of this year. So this is a contract, an agreement between the city of Forest Lake and Manager, which is the Forest Lake Area Athletic Association. So they run the management and maintenance out there, and the standards are to best management practices and standards.
So we have the land,
It's a city-owned park and property.
and it's maintained then by the Forest Lake
Correct.
Association.
And it's one of
I'll
our,
say a couple things in the management agreement. There's our management agreement, so that covers, general day-to-day maintenance. It covers like the programming and scheduling component of the fields as well. We still have some responsibilities, predominantly irrigation, so we contract separately for the maintenance of the irrigation system. Our relationship is with FLA, and then FLA contracts with Blue Diamond for the maintenance of the facility.
Okay.
Fenway Park is one of our 3 preeminent parks.
Yep.
And last night, we were at the Lakeside
Memorial.
Memorial, which was in spectacular shape.
Yes.
Great grass,
Yep.
looked good, healthy.
Yep.
The new plantings that were installed by Jim and company
Noticed
earlier
that.
this year.
And the new sod looks wonderful.
Yeah, spectacular. And I've been out to the Fenway Park multiple times, and that turf does not look anywhere near as spectacular. And I've got some concerns that because that is one of our preeminent parks, we're letting the community down by not maintaining it to that standard. Jamie, this field maintenance plan, is that something that's projected to be implemented, or is that something that's been implemented over history?
I believe this plan has been in place for the, I think this has been the last 8 or 9 years since the maintenance, since the development of the park, from my understanding.
Maybe defer to Al.
So do we have paperwork indicating that all these fertilizer applications have been put down? Okay. That's the True Green material? You know, I don't mean to, this is my profession. I grow grass. And according to the True Green, just 3 pounds of nitrogen, which is the key component to maintaining turf, only 3 pounds has been applied since May 2015. But in the field maintenance plan, it says that 3 pounds will be applied each year. Pardon me, 1 pound has been applied since 2015.
And I
One?
did meet with True Green myself on Monday.
Yeah.
After I had gotten these work orders from them, because they were not the specs that I had originally asked for. And, I am going forward, as I was told by Jamie and Aaron the other day, to go ahead and get that fertilization done that I had wanted to get done the end of July, first part of August. So that's being done tomorrow, and that one does have 4 pounds. The new standard.
Slow release or fast, or what's the
Yeah, what-
release?
I'm sorry.
Slow release, or what is the release on the fertilizer
Oh.
of the stuff that's going down?
1 second here. Al, can I have you go to the podium just so we can get you on record for this? Thank you.
Okay. Well, your question was what's slow release,
How
Jim?
much slow release is in this 4 pounds?
Right offhand, I don't know exactly, but I
That'd
did
be pretty
ask for,
important, yeah, before we put it down.
yeah, I did ask for slow release to be put down.
And
But
what,
obviously, we've asked for 3 pounds, and we haven't got that. I mean, we wouldn't need to talk to True Green to know that that turf hasn't had fertilizer, I mean.
I understand and I agree with you 100%, as
So what
I
I'm
did
saying
say.
is, if we're going to put down 4 pounds, I just would like to know what percentage is slow release, and then what is the source of the
So-
slow release, so we know what we're getting before it goes down, because if they put down 4 pounds of quick release, we're gonna have a bit of a problem.
It'll explode,
it's a big problem.
yeah. I can find that out. They'll be out there tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock I know that's when they're scheduled to be there.
But they'll have the mix already set up then. We'll have what
They
we're
should
gonna
have,
get.
I would think, yeah.
Yeah, what I'm saying is we should know what's going down before.
I can try calling the rep tonight when I leave here.
Yeah,
I
I
can
would
definitely
definitely
do
want to
that.
know that before we put it down.
Who's they?
True Green.
True Green.
I'd be terribly concerned about using True Green because these records are incomplete and they're inaccurate. They talk about applying on a 12 acres of property in less than a half an hour.
Now, that's not true. I mean, I know they were out there longer than a half an hour that day.
They should be.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's what they show
It's
on the
indicative
record.
of each one of these records. I'm concerned.
Totally agree with you, and I went through each and every one of those pages when I met with them, and I had concerns on every page after we had met, both yourself and Jim. And again, I do appreciate your professionalism of the, turf that you both are, well aware of. I do agree with you. I need to look at a different applicator for doing what needs to be done. And I know since that time, I've met also, I was out there with Jamie with a couple of them that were out there, a couple of the turf experts. And, we had a lot of things that we agreed upon. And, I think Andy, is that the one from Big Lake that is going to be doing the work?
He
on
does have one
infield?
bid in that we're considering
Okay.
for the
Okay.
work.
All right. Soil test was taken. I don't know if Jamie has given you any, indication of what we did see. I still contend, and I'll stand by it, that, that infield was not done the way it should have been done from the very beginning when it was redone 4 years ago. There's way too much sand in that soil. The sod that was purchased and laid by the company that did it is not rooted properly at all. We could see that from the core sample that, I think actually Mike pulled the core sample, if I recall. Was it Magic Mike?
Right, so we
Yeah.
had Town and Country, they're also called Magic Turfs. I met with them at the fields on Friday as well and did a quick sampling. And you do see there's only about 1.5 inches of root showing from the sod. And although sod, is more challenging to grow, it was stated that it is nutrient deficient and probably lacking some water supply. So that's why the roots were not any, longer than that. And so he did make that comment, and then I also had, there is sand in the subsurface that another one of the sports turf professionals I had out there investigated and researched that there is quite a bit of solid soil. It's hard and it's harder, but it's still a good amount of soil that they said you can still grow grass in there. There is sand, which isn't a great subsurface, but it's far enough down that it really shouldn't impact the growth of the grass. It just needs to have the correct nutrient supply and ample water supply. So that's the feedback I got on Friday from some of the professionals that I had out there who really specialize in sports turf.
So let's go back to the fertilizer just for a second. Is it granular or liquid they're putting down
I
tomorrow?
believe it's liquid, Jim, from what I could see on the, all the work orders that were there. I think there was only 2 times it was granular, if I recall.
On historic orders? you're saying?
Yes.
I didn't really see the,
Can liquid be slow release?
yeah,
Yeah, it can.
Okay.
but you've got to put such a high concentration of nitrogen in the tank to get 4 pounds that I
I don't know.
have a hard time it could squeeze out of a nozzle. But I don't want to throw darts at individual agronomic practices. Mr. Commissioner, I have limited confidence in recent practices and going forward.
Are you concerned working with FLA or working with the True Green company, or if you can elaborate a little bit?
I would like to make a recommendation that our city council review other options besides FLA
Okay.
as a maintenance, contracted maintenance
Okay,
company.
all right.
And I'd be happy to help pursue that.
Okay.
The Chair, Members of the Commission, just, comment on that. you know, as you know, we have a longstanding agreement here. I would just say that we have immediate issues to deal with, right? I mean, we've got to aerate, we've got to fertilize, we've got landscaping issues, we've got some restoration issues in the football fields that we need to, or lacrosse fields, turf fields, whatever we're calling those things, that we need to deal with to get rid of some of the sodding that had been dealt with previously. And then we obviously have the most pressing issue, which is dealing with the infield 5, so you can get that seeded or sodded, and I think everybody's, the way we're all leaning with it is seeding it, you know, even though it might be slightly disruptive to play next spring, depending on how weather conditions go and all that. So we have those very contemporary issues in front of us, and I think that's what we're trying to deal with. We're also trying to get a handle on the irrigation system, and is that set up right, calibrated right? Obviously, it's gonna be closing out here and, you know, blown out before too long. But, you know, some audit of that has to happen, because seems like it's not getting enough water, right? I mean, water isn't, you know, a difficult resource here because we draw out of ponds and all that, and so, you know, from that perspective, you know, water's in plentiful supply here. It's just a function of making sure we get that right. So we've got those core issues, you know, that are right in front of us. We need to kind of get through, you know, this season, I think, of course. And, you know, maybe, over the winter, over the fall, you know, as we go into that, you know, if you'd like that kind of evaluation, I think that's probably the time to be doing that. You know, it fits in the timelines of our agreement. We can have some dialogue, you know, with FLA about expectations and, you know, further develop alternative options. And, you know, when you're developing alternative options, you have to think about it in terms of, you know, the specific agronomic practices like you mentioned, and, you know, that's one thing, but then there's the day-to-day maintenance, there's the day-to-day field management of, you know, getting the things chalked and the garbage picked up, and just, you know, people management out at Fenway. And so, scheduling management. And, you know, that's something that's gonna take some time, to kind of dive in and do. And so I think it's kind of a two-tracked discussion, if that's what the commission would like to see happen.
Any other questions? Yes, Terry.
Recognizing I'm new, is there anything in the agreement that allows you to withhold payment until results are demonstrated?
Well, withholding 0 is not that
Okay.
compelling of a
So
thing to deal
there's
with.
nothing,
So the arrangement, just as a reminder, the arrangement with FLA is they basically maintain the facility. They are responsible for day-to-day operations. And in exchange for that, they have the ability to schedule it for their sports, which they charge. And so we get a financial report somewhat regularly from them that details out their budget and how that's going. And they don't really generate revenue out of it. In fact, they've traditionally supplemented operations with some of their charitable gambling proceeds. I think in this year's budget, it's approximately $10,000. But they sort of serve as the conduit between all the different user groups out there. And, you know, that's not as easy as, well, it's about how you'd expect it to be, and there's a lot of coordination involved with that particular piece. So, in the agreement, there is provisions where we can express dissatisfaction, and, you know, we have termination provisions within the agreement that would allow that to happen if we aren't satisfied with the results and with how things are going out there. But no payment withholding necessarily.
So this work that was gonna be done here soon with the aeration, seeding and all that, is FLA paying for that then, since that's part of this stuff that's supposed to have been taken care of, or not? Or is that something we've gotta come up with money for?
I think that we talked a little bit about, Al had expressed they had some room in their budget for the Field 5 infield improvements, so we were gonna get that. We just recently got 2 quotes in for that, so hoping to make a decision and then talk to Al about, the financial component to that piece of it. Aerating, I know that historically the city had that in our agreement. That did change in the new agreement, so now that is a responsibility of FLAW, but we are talking to them to see if just right now, to help get this done quickly, that the city would take care of aeration here in the next week or so, just to get that off the list, and then talk about that moving forward, if that's something that FLAW would continue to do, is the aeration, being that that's a new component to the contract. So, you know, I don't know if we aerated yet this year or not, so have not aerated yet this year. So that needs to happen in the next week, as Aaron had,
Done in March or early April, I see by the maintenance plan.
That's when it's supposed to be done, but that's also fertilized 4 times or whatever, and we know that stuff's not all getting done, so.
so I know as Aaron had mentioned, we have the Field 5 field improvements with that really small window of opportunity, so we're gonna get that done in the next week. Talk to Al about the cost for that. City's gonna help with the immediate need for aeration, and then we also do have to figure out, there are some concerns with some resodding that was done on the multi-use field, so we have to address that situation. And Aaron had also mentioned the landscaping, so Public Works actually went out, there were a couple landscape beds that were just right off of Field 5 and right at the entryway of the park that were, you know, had significant weeds. So Public Works went in this week and pulled all those out. Right now, the plan is just to not do any replanting until next season, so we're just gonna leave that, but at least aesthetically, all the weed and shrubs are out there. And I don't know if they're treating, there have been significant, you know, weeds in the warning track and in the bullpens and batting cages, so I don't know if that's something they're spraying to take care of, but, you know, that's some of the things we've seen out there at the complex, just as we've done some touring over the last few weeks.
So Jamie, the seeding and the aeration and are they also including taking down the humps where we have the trip hazards? Is that part of this whole thing? That's gonna all be done as one, because otherwise it's still gonna be unusable.
Yeah, so
They'll scrape off
they'll
where
cut
the
out.
Tag line's been taken the wrong way.
So what Jim's referring to, in addition to the turf on the infield, Aaron's kind of outlining with his cursor, there's, because of how the fields have been dragged, there's some lips that have developed that are causing excessive egg lime, so there's some little humps that are there that balls can bounce off of and are taking bad hops, and, you know, it's posing a safety concern, and again, why one of the reasons that it's not playable in the current conditions. So, the professional sports turf managers that we've met with can address and will address that situation where they can cut out some of the turf, some of the sod, and level that out. So that will be part of the improvements as well.
Questions? So, we don't manage the money coming in. We don't manage the money going out into one of our 3 preeminent parks in the city. Where do we get satisfaction here if the fields are not up to expectations? How long does it take?
The agreement allows for that, and so I think within that, if we're not satisfied with the operations, you're in a situation where, you know, we can separate from the agreement, but like anything in life, you have to know what your best alternative is. And the alternative is, city could take it over and go ahead and consider that and, you know, look at what it would take for us to operate it. Not an unusual thing to do. Many cities operate, you know, athletic complexes like this. But, you know, it's resource intensive and takes time. We don't have a, you know, full park and rec department, you know, we don't have a number of people, and we don't do active recreation generally, more events and things like that. The scheduling component then would have to get picked up. You have this interaction with the user groups that we don't currently have, and, you know, of course, in a situation like this, not one of the user groups thinks that they're paying too little to be here. In fact, they all think they're paying way too much. And so that's a pretty consistent issue, you know, that you have to work through, and we've sort of been buttressed from that issue, you know, by having, you know, FLA do the operations. So, I mean, yeah, it's ultimately, you've got to look at your alternative. What's a contracting solution? If this isn't working out anymore and people can't be responsive to the needs and what have you. Or, you know, what's an in-house solution? cost for us, and how much revenue would we generate off the field rental, and what's the net difference on that? So those things take time to explore if that's a line of discussion people want to have. And I think, you know, from our perspective, it's just, you know, it's not, nothing's out of the realm of doable. It's just, you know, what kind of resources people are willing to commit to doing it.
And do you guys have paid positions that help with some of these?
Yeah, the workers out the field are paid for their time, of course, you know. Like Aaron said, it's an ongoing, you know, daily event
But
that
like
does take
scheduling
place.
and all the different things that need to be done, are those all paid positions?
Not totally,
Okay.
no.
Some of
Not
it's
totally.
volunteer?
Some of it is, yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
But I saw some numbers that you had provided earlier that FLA brings in total about $90,000 annually?
No.
No? How much
No,
is it?
It's about 70
About 70, and about the same goes into the park?
or more. Or more.
How much of that is in
The
agronomic?
concession alone this year, I've spent close to $8,000 on the building itself. You got maintenance of plumbing that's out there. We've had to replace 2 China Bowl toilets. They're not cheap, okay? I didn't come to the city to ask for those to be paid for. You know, we originally built what is out there. The city has participated with us in additional concrete work that was done out there. The scoreboards that are out there, we put into the fields last year for a total of about $60,000. You know, we're interested in improving our park as we do, and with doing so, I've been able to secure tournaments that Forest Lake has never been able to secure before in the past. You know, like sectional tournaments, the high school level, the Minnesota Sports Federation. You know, Jack, I said even back in June that Field 5 was in very bad shape. I'm not going to stand here and take all the blame on Field 5 myself, okay? I still say that the sod that was done, the way the job was done on that field was not conducive to what there should have been. And I've already heard from 2 experts that have been out there and taken a look at it. They pretty much take the same side with me on that. There has been a lot of settling in that infield over time. You know, we're only talking 4 years since the city and baseball put the kind of dollars into it that they did. And the whole reason for it was that there was a drainage problem. There was nothing wrong with the infield itself. There was a drainage problem. So they had to tear out everything along the sides of first and third base and reconstruct the drain tile system that was in there because it had collapsed. So I'm not here to say that, you know, everything we do is perfect. I would appreciate from yourself, being of the, you know, turf expert you are, and Jim also, that maybe give me a little guidance. Tell me what you'd like to see done out there. You apparently know of individuals that do, you know, the fertilization from all your years in the business, and maybe some of those individuals would be better fitted for what we need to do and accomplish out there.
I agree, Al. I think there are people
Okay.
that are better fitted for that.
I think so,
And
too.
I'm looking at the field maintenance plan, and it has not been implemented. And this is something that you said has been ongoing for 8 years, but this plan isn't happening out there. Not only that, there are elements of this plan that aren't even in the playbook.
Okay?
And that has me concerned. You may be great at scheduling, you may be great at recruiting outside groups and bringing people into play and getting the community support to enhance the field. Fantastic. Kudos to you for that. As far as the agronomic practices out there, they are subpar. And it's a preeminent park. It's supposed to be one of our top 3. And
understand
every
that.
time I've been out there, I'm just amazed. I'm so disappointed. And it's not because of lack of funding. I've seen the dollars that go into the park, or at least the dollars that you provided me. There are a lot of dollars available. And they're just, I don't know if they're being misappropriated on different projects around the park. I've done the numbers, I've done the calculations. True Green is treating less than half the park each time they treat. Half the turfed areas. As I say, I've done the numbers, and it's just not adding up. And as I told you at our last meeting, you want some guidance? I've got a full-time job. This is a full-time job what we're talking about here on the park.
What would
And
it
that's
take for you to
why-
put together a maintenance plan?
If I do that, I'm gonna implement it.
Jackie?
I'd like to take a minute to just step back and say that the city of Forest Lake and Flaw has had a very long-standing, really well organized relationship.
Thank you, Jackie.
And you and I have been at it.
Yep.
Different ideas, different days. But I think that what's happened here is just a fallout of checking up on each other. I think that you didn't come to us when you should have. I think that we didn't go to city council when we should have, but we didn't know we should have. Flaw didn't come to us. You know, we heard it from outside teams apparently, and some of our own that just have decided this field is not good and we're not gonna play on it anymore. You know, that's not good for you, that's not good for Flaw, that's not good for us, our image, that's not good for the wonderful tournaments that you bring in that, you know, you've expanded so well on. So I just think that we all need to step back, decide where we go forward from here to get this year done, to get the turf, that field, or all of them, and all the batting cages and fence lines and everything, back up to the best that it can be this year, find out what it looks like next year, and we can go over all of these other options by working together when the contract comes up, which you said it just did. Or no, in April,
Yeah.
right?
We just renewed in April.
You just
So a
renewed it in
3-year
April.
contract.
So it'll be up for discussion again between you, Flaw, us, city council, probably by the first of the year, I would guess. And I think at that point, when we can discuss it all and we're not so emotional, because I feel like we have a lot of emotions running here tonight, we can better step back and create a new plan that everybody will be more vested in, and there'll be more checks and balances. So that's my suggestion, is that I want to know where you go from here with this plan, if this is what you're going to implement, and this is what the professionals say, that if we go forward from early August to the end of the year, if that's going to help improve, what else has to be done, I think that's the plan that needs to be put into place.
Pardon me, Jackie, this plan is not valid.
I understand you don't like this plan, Jim.
No, I
Oh,
teach a
that's-
course
yeah.
with the Minnesota
I
Pollution
under- but
Control
you have to
Agency on turf
understand that this
management.
plan has been on file with the city and been okay, and apparently it has worked in the past.
We wouldn't be in the shape that we are today if this plan was even halfway implemented.
I think I'll interject just for a minute. I know we just got this plan yesterday. It was something we'd asked to receive just to understand the maintenance plan. We've never had this in possession or approved or reviewed or anything, just because we hold that maintenance agreement that in the management agreement, it states management best practices. So it's stated in the agreement like that. The letter that we did send out just as a notice with some of the initial maintenance concern asked for a maintenance plan, just so we knew what was being done on there and the plan moving forward. So this is what we received yesterday as a result of that recent request, a little over a week
At
ago.
the end of last year, did we have issues with these fields?
Not, that were brought to our attention at
Not
that
brought-
time.
not- Right, they were not brought to our attention. So as of the end of playing last year, we had no complaints, we had tournaments, the fields were full all the time, Flaw was successful, everything was good that we are aware of, that Al is aware of, that the Parks, Lakes, and Trail Commission is aware of, that City Council is aware of. So let's not go backwards, let's go forward.
Correct.
This is the plan that you asked for, and
Correct.
they gave it. If we don't like it, we do need to adjust it. But I don't have that particular expertise.
I was told this plan has been in place for the last 8 years. I was given the records of the applications. They don't
It's not happening.
jive. They
We
don't
didn't
jive.
have, this plan was put in place supposedly by Mr. Hauge.
And he's had it, he said he's been
But
doing this
didn't
for
Jamie just say, we've never seen it before?
We've never needed or asked for a physical copy.
Exactly.
But this
So-
has been what they've been
So how would we have
implementing.
anything to even question if it was done or not? We trusted them because we had a wonderful working relationship with them.
Right.
Now, we have issues, but instead of battling
Mm-hmm.
and you know, we need to go forward. First, we need to fix it now. Do whatever we can this year and get it fixed. And when the contract comes up, or even before that, start working on what is the best plan for all of us. That's the way I think
I
we
was
should
asked to
handle it.
participate on this commission and be the liaison with Fenway Park and go out
Yes.
there and make my investigations, and I've been doing my due diligence this whole year. The issues out there did not happen since May 1st this year. There have been compounding problems out there. And now it's gotten to the point that the turf is losing its viability.
I understand that.
Going forward, I have limited confidence that the current plan in place is gonna bring it back. And that's why I made the suggestion that we look at other alternative options.
Right now.
Well, we begin the process right now.
And that's what we're all saying. We begin the process right now, but we can't wait to start repair. We need to
I
start the
agree, and
repair
that
work
repair is
now.
gonna be taken care of. That's my understanding, that within the next 5 days, that repair will be,
Then we're probably saying the same thing.
yeah, but the long-range program is not a viable program for one of our preeminent
And so
parks.
that's what we work on in the future. But right now, today, we need to decide who's going to go in there and repair those fields to the best of their ability this fall.
Very good.
Okay?
Yes, and I think we are saying the same thing, but in different ways, that we
I
are addressing, we are looking on how we move forward. We are addressing the immediate concern with the Field 5. We need to get that taken care of. We have two very great opportunities that are both ones that can be completed within about a week, which is well within our window of opportunity for any overseeding, which is usually by September 15th. So we're confident that we'll get the work done that needs to be done, so that by May 15th of next year, the infield will be playable, in a safe playable condition for teams out at Fenway Field 5. So again, I will talk to Al about what that cost would be. I know that was a issue or concern brought up of, you know, how that will be paid for. Additionally, the city is gonna help aerate immediately within the next week. I just have to get Public Works scheduled to do that. Beyond that, that is in the contract, a new item that FLA is responsible for. So we'll work with them on if they're annually aerating. So I think, Jackie, the contract we have with the Athletic Association is a 3-year term.
Right, but you're saying that you only aerate once a year, only,
No, should be, the thing, Jackie, is that the city was supposed to be doing the aerating, okay?
but that's on
They-
here.
Yes, it is on
And
there.
isn't this from you?
That is from
So
me,
this is from you, but this isn't all your responsibility, is what you're saying then?
correct,
This is just the whole overall plan?
correct,
Not just everything you're supposed to be doing,
Right.
but everything everybody's supposed to be doing?
right.
Okay, that.
But if
makes-
Jack doesn't agree with the
Got it.
plan that's there in front of him, that plan has been given to me by a couple of individuals that I've also spoken to. Why don't you give me the name of some experts that you know of? I'd be more than happy to call them and meet with them
Sam
to see. if-
Bauer, University of Minnesota Turf Grass Extension Specialist.
Okay, well, you know,
I think just with
Yeah.
Jackie.
is
you're-
that where you're at, Jack, or University of Minnesota?
No, I teach for the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency,
Oh.
but I know individuals at the University of Minnesota that would look at this and be terribly concerned, especially with the late October
Okay,
fertility program.
okay.
The-
Well, you have my
Yeah.
business card.
Yeah.
If you would take 2 minutes to email me the information, that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, I will.
Thank you.
It-
I do have a few questions.
Sure.
I will definitely not a turf expert whatsoever, but just kind of looking at some of the other logistics. I know that we did request from FLA a list of documentation from the last few years in a certain timetable. Did the city receive that in the time requested?
In
City satisfied with the documents they received?
the city requested the maintenance records for the last 3 years of anything that's been done out at Fenway. So what we received a couple days later than requested was just the True Green application forms that Jack has. So I'm assuming there's additional maintenance records out there that we don't have. I think where there's maybe some confusion is FLA and then Blue Diamond. So Blue Diamond is the company doing the maintenance out there, correct?
Right.
And so I think that's, you know, we don't have any maintenance records of the Blue Diamond, so how many mowings or how many hours are mowing? Is that what you're referring to of, you know,
Anything that you requested you sent everyone on the commission an email of what the Parks Commission, the City of Forest Lake requested. They wanted from FLA certain records by this date, certain records by this date. I was just wondering if those were all received and if we were satisfied with the records we received.
we requested all maintenance records from the last 3 years and we received the True Green application form. So there's outstanding maintenance records from Blue Diamond.
Okay. Okay. My question for Mr. Hauge here is, with some of the things aside from the turf, some of the dead trees and bushes around the area, is that something that you have people that check on a daily basis to make sure that those things are upkept? And did you know that that was part of the agreement to make sure the parking lot was clean and to, you know, upkeep around the fields and not just the fields themselves? Was that understanding there with us and FLA?
I think, as far as the parking lot goes, the parking lot was originally supposed to be the city's, as I recall, but, you know, we have done things in the parking lot. We always did the trimming of the shrubs. We pulled dead shrubs that were out there. They were very sparse. I said it looked terrible. I said that even back this spring, that we need to do something. Either we're gonna replant or take out what's in there. And when I was out of town, they had decided to remove the rest of the plants that were out there, or shrubs, and rock it all. And it looks very clean now. It looks very nice. As far as the shrubs that are behind the batting cage by Field 5 that you can see from the parking lot, that's something that, yes, I've said before that those shrubs have been dead for a couple of years. And what did they want to do with them? You know? So again, you know, I think a lot of it is, you know, communication between the two. I've trimmed trees out there. I've hauled the stuff out of there. Last year, we removed dead trees that were there, and Dave sent someone over from the city to pick them up, and then they hauled them to the compost.
Okay.
And, you know, yeah, we've done, you know, we've trimmed trees in and throughout. We've replanted trees, FLA has, that are out there. I haven't come to the city to ask them to plant trees or anything, but, you know, I think like Jackie said, and I think Aaron has said it even before too, we have a very good working relationship, and all we're looking for is to work together to accomplish what needs to be done. And I'm not opposed, as I've said before, to listening to experts like Jack or Jim, who have been in the turf business as long as they have, for a little bit of advice on that. I'm not saying I have the answers to all of it, but I can tell you in my 30 years in running FLA, I think we've done a very good job for this community in providing recreation for kids in and throughout, along with the schools also. So, you know, the turf, I agree, Jack, it's not up to the standards that you would like to see, okay? However, these fields are played on almost 6 days a week. To get in there to do additional items that need to be done from April through October, we have a real restraint when it comes to weather and what happens with that. So any advice that you can give, you know, you don't have to take hours to do so, I'd appreciate it. I guess that's all I'm trying to say.
Al, I got a question for you.
Sure,
Speaking as FLA's president
yes,
and not as owner-operator of Blue
Correct.
Diamond,
yes.
which seems interesting to me that I think there's a conflict of interest there. Wouldn't it be in FLA's best interest to have amazing fields, and wouldn't it be wise to look at other options to enhance those fields?
Sure. At whose dollar, though?
Well, let's see how much money you put into it, how many FLA dollars go into the field today. If we could have that budget, we talked about that at the June meeting, I believe, that we were
You
gonna
have
get
that budget. That budget's been given to you. We've always handed in the budget at the end of the season.
Yeah, it looks pretty sparse, not low numbers. There isn't a lot of line item going on that budget that I've seen.
Okay?
Okay, so let's bid that out and let Blue Diamond throw their bid in. This is what it's gonna cost to take care of that field.
Okay.
And this is what, Hopco, and this is what Magic Turf is gonna charge. This is what the city can come up with in their expertise. Let's come up with some competing bids here.
We can do
And
that.
if Blue Diamond is the winner, and fantastic. That would be just fantastic.
Yeah, and we've done it in the past, Jack, just for your information, okay? But now take into account also the tournaments that we host on weekends, okay? I have to have people on site to do that. I don't know of any lawn care company that's gonna be able to do that for us. We've had no one that's ever been able to step up to take care of that. And that's a big part of what takes place out at Fenway. It really is.
You can develop those, criteria in the bid process. I'm just looking for better grass. I'm not looking to
I know you
destroy the
are.
relationship with
I know
the
you
law
are.
in
Yeah,
the
and
city.
Al, I would think, like Jack said, you want that too, because it's gonna be, like, we've got baseball now that says they don't wanna play there anymore. That's a kind of a kick in the face in my mind. So if the fields are good and they wanna play there, that's a positive for you as well as for the city.
Well, I've been out to take a look at Cooling Camp too, where they've been spending money out of funds, and I've walked out there. That's not the best fields for as far as safeness for kids for running on. There are many holes out there, uneven surfaces. You want to talk about weed problems, they're also significant there. Your safety fences along the bench are not of the right height as to what they should be for an athletic field. So, we can go down another path here too, all the way around. I think Fenway, for the way it's been built, the way it's been maintained, I'm not saying it's 100%, but I think it's probably somewhere in that high 75 to 78 range, to be very honest with you. When I look at the number of tournaments and people that come from all over the state and come here to play, they love Fenway. They love Fenway. They love the fields. They like everything about it, okay? Now, as a turf expert, I haven't talked to any other turf expert other than yourself and Jim, other than the other two that I talked to last week along with Jamie. And I do see what they're talking about, okay? Those items can be fixed, okay? But I'm not totally at fault all the way around for what's happening on Field 5, okay? And Field 5 was brought to your attention this spring, and I also brought it up last fall, that Field 5 has not been in the best condition. It has sunk, you can see that. Yes, there is a curb, but if you look at the other 4 fields across the street, the curb that supposedly we got rid of that curb. And that was by putting more new ag on it and totally dragging the infield to where it's at today. And that was with the help of the city in providing the capital improvement for that. So, again, it all comes down to, Jack, we all have to work together, we really do.
Then I still stand by my recommendation that the city council look at other businesses, other opportunities, including Blue Diamond, to throw in, hey, this is our bid on the project.
Okay?
Because I want to see better turf there. I want to see a safe playground. I want the baseball team to stick around. Because they've said they're not
Oh,
going.
baseball, they're sticking around, I'll guarantee you that.
Well, of course, we're going to drop some coin into that infield. But as of the meeting a week ago, they were out.
I thought they weren't gonna, they wanted sod, we all agreed
Yeah.
that seed.
We all
made
agreed
sense.
sod
But
was
when they
not the way
left
to
that-
go.
When they left that meeting, I thought they said that unless we sodded it, they weren't coming back.
Well, they said the schools were sodding also, and they're not sodding, they're seeding also. That's the way you get the best turf, as both of you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is to seed it, not by sodding it.
Well, we agree
It's as
with
simple
that.
as that.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
if they can't play there till May 15th, they can't play there till May 15th, But one thing I should have never let happen was in April, let teams be out on that field, because they did rip it up even more. And that field was corrated, okay? It was overseeded, and it was fertilized a couple more times than anything else out there. And you can see the discoloration of where the sod was put in and where all the seeded grass is. So, again, it's a working machine out there within that field. I mean, I can't say anything other than what I've already expressed to you about it.
So just for some clarification, when you said in the spring that there are some bushes problems problems in the parking lot, we should rock it, or we should pull some of the bushes or the trees that are dead behind the batting cages, or you said last fall and this spring that you mentioned that the field is in bad conditions as well as 4 years ago. When you say, I said that, who did you tell? Did you tell
In conversation, you know,
with,
even in
with
the
a
past.
neighbor, or did you
No,
report
no,
it
no.
to the city?
No, with the city. I didn't
Okay.
record it.
Well, no,
but-
I'm just wondering if those concerns were brought to the city, and then if they, right.
We've done all the trimming of all the shrubbery out there.
right,
that's there,
I'm,
okay?
I'm just wondering.
And I don't mind doing that extra little bit that has to be done, but to bring in mulch from over here at your compost site and then
Right.
throw that down after you've sprayed everything, guess what? A week later, you're gonna have weeds in there.
Okay,
And it's a battle to fight, all the time.
right,
So it's as simple as that. Rock was the best solution, and I thank Dave for that, is who I thank.
Chairman of the commission, we're talking about stuff that I think spans a few years here. I mean,
Yeah,
right,
that
exactly.
compost stuff, I think is 2-3 years old in terms of when that got brought in or whatever.
Right.
But-
so, yeah,
And we've had.
Not the
this is
present.
a constant thing, the parking lot is not, we as a city need to accept responsibility for the fact that that was not maintained the right way.
okay,
Over a long period of time. The landscaping in and through there has kind of died off. I mean, it is a unique situation because we don't have a lot of presence out there. I mean, to come in and take care of some landscape islands versus you've got all this infrastructure in the entire park to deal with that. You know, we just aren't, you know, keeping up. We didn't keep up with the weeds. Some of the landscaping died, didn't perform, which is gonna happen. I mean, the park is, you know, not exactly brand new, you know, I mean, it's 2008 if you think about it, and so some of that's just gotta, there has to be continual investment in it, but, the parking lot, you know, has traditionally been our responsibility, and, you know, we're trying to be more on top of that now. I think some of these other things can be a little more, you know, there might be a little gray, but, the parking lot has traditionally been our responsibility. I think we've got it to a point where we need to have it now, and we'll work at maintaining it that way. There's, landscaping is dealt with. We are coming in to do like a seal coat this fall, just to kind of, you know, there's some cracks and where weeds are growing up through the cracks and things, and that's a thing through the whole park though. I mean, the weed management has got to be better out there, in the warning tracks, in the parking lot, in the various areas, you know, where weeds in any facility like this are gonna come in, so that's something that we need to take care of too right now as well.
perfect.
Who's this
So-
we? Who's accountable for this?
Well, I would say as far as what we have to, from a city perspective, we're pretty much, I think, minus the, seal coating of the parking lot, and we agree that just because there was confusion on who's doing aeration, and I don't think that's to anybody's fault, I think that's legitimate confusion, communication, because, we, previously in the original FLA agreement, aeration was their responsibility. Somewhere in the middle of that, you know, we as a city agreed that we would do it because we had the equipment and it worked out. And then in the new agreement, it evolved back to FLA. So I think it's just one of those things that, you know, didn't quite get picked up in the latest iteration of the agreement. So, that part of it, we're gonna take care of that piece. We're good, but that'll have to revert back to FLA at some point, or we have to continue to talk about that. I think we're good with the parking lot, and we've taken care of those other landscape areas to prep them for some alternative in the spring. So here, we're gonna do, we're gonna sod that in, or seed that in rather, one or the other.
It's done.
And then this landscape area, you know, we're gonna landscape that next spring, so. But in the future, I think going forward, I mean, I don't think we need to send a crew out here to deal with weeds in this landscape bed when you're dealing with them, you know, here through here and whatever, you know, so,
The campus.
right.
The campus minus the parking facility.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, just even the parking lot weeds, I mean, I think it just seems like that can, I don't think we gotta send a whole public works crew out there to deal with parking lot weeds when it's being dealt with there, you know, things like that. If there's major, you know, capital improvement kinds of things, that's one thing, but I think that's something that, you know, we'll have to talk about
I
and
agree.
probably get resolved, you know.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big questions. As I walked through this park with Jamie and one or two other members, is one of the biggest things we pointed out was the parking lot, and that was a big concern of ours, of the different dead trees and the different weeds growing up. And I guess that was, that was one of the big questions we had is, was this supposed to be responsible by FLA, or was this a city issue that the city's not holding their end up? And I guess we need to figure that out and have that practice going forward, I think, for everyone, for the city and for FLA.
And I
It's
think,
gonna be pretty
I think,
maintenance-free
like
going
Aaron
forward.
said, yeah, I mean, I think it's taken care of. Dave has done a good job. I have to say, Dave's very good to work with, and he sees the need when there's an issue, especially out there, anytime I brought up anything, so
The-
I
The
appreciate
weeds in-
that.
In here, the weeds in there, those are supposed to be there, that's a rain
The,
garden, so.
the
Yeah.
different islands, the dead trees where the different islands are, there's quite a few on each of the.
That's all
park
taken care of
islands.
and done.
We've
Correct.
pulled those.
Right, but 5 years from now, if we have the same issue, we should decide in the future if that should be a city issue or a FLA issue, just to manage it and upkeep it. I
It's just a
guess
weed
you could say.
management thing at this point, there's nothing to worry about anymore. You
Yeah,
just
there's
gotta
no
spray
trees
weeds.
left that are
No
dead.
trees
They're all
gone.
gone.
Right.
They're all gone going into the fields there
No,
from
No, just the parking lot.
just the parking lot?
You're talking about the dead trees in the complex.
Okay.
Those I think are still there, and I don't know what the plan was with
There's still,
those.
that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
Would it make sense for, starting in 2018 to put together a plan that what does the city do, what does FLA do, and then reports to say it was done along with the costs of who's putting what into what, and that's reviewed quarterly, so we know things are being done and who's paying for them, and you're not confused. And I kind of keep hearing you saying, we told them, but I don't know if it's our responsibility, yours, it sounds like people are confused on who should be doing what. That way, if we put together a plan and say, we're gonna take care of the parking lot or the weeds, or we're gonna specifically do ABC on fields 1, 2, 3, the rest of it's yours. Okay, what is your plan to maintain that? And then we review it, and is it working?
So Kathy, to that point, that's a great suggestion. Most of that is outlined in the management agreement. The city, I agree that aeration
Kind of in
shift.
words, though, it's kind of all.
Well, right now, the city's only responsibility out at FLA is, like Aaron mentioned, any big capital improvements, we always help with that. And then the city takes care of irrigation repairs, the startup and winterization. And that's a separate contract that the city currently holds with Blue Diamond Enterprises as well, but it's a separate contract outside of FLA. So really, the city's only responsibility is irrigation.
Okay, but let's
Um,
just say
we
what that is,
contract with
what
them.
months it's being done, what are we paying for it? So we have a full picture of what's happening out there by who, and
That's-
what time frame and what the costs are.
That's what this field maintenance plan is, the intention of that.
This here,
Correct,
Right.
because other than irrigation.
but
and,
there needs to be a lot more
and-
detail behind this.
Well, I think that's the moving forward part. If this is
Yeah.
what the plan is and has been for 8 years, but, this is the first time we're seeing it on paper
Right.
because we just recently requested it. If this isn't up to city standards or Park Trails and Lakes Commission standards for one of our top parks, then what needs to change? Do we
We
need more
need to say
detail? Do
what
we
we're
need
gonna
anything
do.
about trash pickup? And, I know walking the complex, there's, litter throughout the park. Is that part of, what's the level of detail that you want to go with this plan if you don't think what you see here is sufficient? The city does take care of the irrigation, which again is separate from the Fenway Management Agreement.
do they take care of it just the startup and the end? We don't go out there
We
and
don't do
check for
daily
heads?
maintenance.
Do we?
No,
Is
we-
that-
If it's a broken head, we pay to fix it,
Yeah, but you,
but they
You
administer
repair.
your.
We
They,
repair.
we have they repair it with Blue Diamond, so we have a
He's responsible for the irrigation.
the
but
cost,
He's actually supposed to be replacing the heads.
correct. We have a contract with
We know
Blue
we have
Diamond.
irrigation issues, and did you ever get a chance to look at the?
Yep. It was a it was decoder on that one field. That was bad.
So the settings, because that one gentleman that you met with, I think, Jack, I didn't go out there, but he said that everything was set at the same time, so you have a quarter,
No,
same
it's-
set as a half, same set as a full.
That's not true.
It wasn't,
No. They ranged anywhere from 15 minutes up to 40 minutes throughout. The larger areas, like in the fields, are mostly all set at 30 minutes for each zone. But I thought you were referring to on field 1 in the complex. There was some dryness
Yeah.
in the outfield.
number of spots.
That's when I was gone and I wasn't aware of it. But it was a decoder that was bad. in the zone box. So,
Yes, go ahead.
I just, 2 questions, clarification for me. So the agreement that is out there outlines exactly what they're responsible for and what we're responsible for, right? Is that what I
Yep.
understood?
Correct.
Okay. And then I've heard Jack talk a little bit about finances. Is there a report that we received that shows here was the money in and then the detailed money out so that we know how that correlates back to the maintenance plan? Is that something that we have or get to?
We can give you the most recent version of what we received. I mean, it's not gonna be to the level of detail I think that you're thinking. Basically, for this whole conversation, it's gonna be one line item, like maintenance contract with Blue Diamond or something like that. So, you know, like, it's pretty high level.
So we don't get like a detailed audit that shows the investment in and then the expenses out to see if they correlate back to the maintenance plan?
Yeah, no.
No.
Well, I know Dave was concerned that he's supposed to have, every time they do herbicide, fertilizer, you know, you guys are spraying Roundup, that, by law, we are supposed to have that. The city should have those, Dave should have those, and he doesn't. He hasn't been getting those.
We just recently got them, but they're
So-
supposed to be
Right.
as
Yeah.
treated.
Yeah, so, yeah, every time that they send you
Yep.
an invoice, Dave would need it, because I know
and
that.
I've got that paperwork now,
Yeah,
Jim.
okay.
I've got that,
Because
so.
I know that that's
yes.
one of his concerns he had when we had
Yes.
our last meeting.
So Terry, no, I think the last time we had that was, I think, back to like 2012 or 13 or so, where it was like a full report or audit, I guess, per se, on the more detailed level, but we get annually like a high-level budget report, budget and then actual for the following year.
So are we in the agreement or somewhere in a contract or whatever it is there anything that, if we haven't had one since 2012, is there anything that identifies that that should be done annually, just so you know that the investments were made and specifically where they were made in a more detailed format? Or just-
Page 6. I think on page 6, we have financial reports. So by June 1st of each year, during the term of the agreement, manager shall deliver a city a financial report by CPA with a statement, balance sheet, and gross sheet. Is that what you're referring to? So that's what, we do have that language in the contract.
But we don't get it.
I think the last time I saw records of, because, I've only been in this position a few years now, I haven't received I've just received the budget report, the high-level budget report.
So would that be something we would be able to request so that we receive that, just to be able to look at it, to see where the investments are? Or is that not something we can do?
I think it is something we can, I'll use that as a report that you guys have annually done, outside of your,
I think what we've traditionally received is like FLA's, their overall audited financial statement. I mean, but the relevant part is always just the breakout on the fields and, we can, why don't we provide you what we've received recently and then we can evaluate what makes sense. Just because the revenues are pretty detailed, in terms of what the revenues are. It's just the maintenance contract and a couple of the expenses are pretty high level,
So could we see what you have now and a copy of what you got in 2012, just so we could see the difference?
Sure.
So I guess my last question, for both Jack and Jim, when we see the Fenway Athletic Park field maintenance plan, do you think if this plan was followed perfectly, would that be beneficial and successful for Fenway? If it was,
It would certainly be a lot better.
if it was done exactly how it says, line for line?
Well, like Jack said, for years, the U was saying, the late fall fertilization was part of the program. They haven't said that now for a number of years. They've changed that. So putting fertilizer, and I think in that report it said 3300, didn't it, Jack? That they were
Yeah,
putting
some
down?
3300 in June
October.
through early August.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's, there's just some of those things, you know, that,
The late fall application is incorrect. It should be done about Labor Day.
Okay.
It,
so some of the things that.
For
we're
winter-
trying to-
for winterization, Jack?
Adjusting.
there's no winterization.
You don't want to see any fertilizer down in October, the end
Not
of
at all.
October?
That went out a decade ago.
You used to push that.
Yeah, they used to push
You
that.
Okay.
used to push
Yeah.
August 15th and October 15th as the only two times to fertilize. And that's what they stuck with, well, I was at the U, but
Yeah.
they've changed that since, you know, they've found that that isn't as beneficial as they originally thought.
Sam Bauer did his thesis paper on nutrient metabolism.
You
of
can
the
eat
turf
eggs
plant.
now too, you know.
Yeah,
They used to not be good for us.
yeah.
Now they are.
So it kind of sounds like, for the most part, this is a good plan if it was followed. There are a few adjustments you two would recommend, possibly some adjustments of months and what should happen at that time. Is
I'd
that
make a
correct?
lot of adjustments.
You would make
yes.
quite a few adjustments?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
But the big thing right now, that sounds like is all set up. If somebody, we
Right,
have to
the-
decide, but somebody's gonna come in, punch the heck out of it, so we have a ton of aeration, that'll be us. Somebody's gonna come in and see, gonna make sure the irrigation is operation, and we're gonna get
Does
the fields
operate.
back as quickly as possible. That's the
Correct.
very most important thing right
Correct.
now, because our timeline is so narrow. So
Correct.
Other adjustments and things like that are down the road, you know. The most important thing you have to agree is to get that field up to where baseball wants to play there, right? I mean,
Right,
and if it looks great in the spring and we can hold them off, like you say, don't let them get in there in April, I would think that they would find that it would be in good shape by spring with doing the seeding that we're planning.
So
Correct.
then, the follow-up to my question here is, Mr. Hauge, do you believe that, whether if it was done in the past or not, do you believe that FLA could maintain exactly what is said here? And we'll possibly adjust it, I'm sure, before then. And I know you can't speak to what will be the document, but if it was presented as it is now, do you think FLA could maintain it?
the maintenance plan that's in front of you has pretty much been the plan that we've done, okay?
Right.
I do agree with Jack in saying that after looking through the records from True Green, we haven't been getting what I've been paying for as far as in the way of fertilization. I mean, I agree with you 100% on that. After I went through each and every page with them and I highlighted a lot of points on there. Tomorrow's fertilization, by the way, is a 2505 is what has been recommended by two others that I've talked to. So,
And going down at 4 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet?
that's what I was told. 3 to 4 is what I was told.
Hopefully it's closer to 3. But when you talk to them, if you.
No,
could
you don't
let-
want that?
If you could let Jamie know what the. how much
Need an
is-
analysis.
Well, I'll get a
on it.
copy of it
Yeah,
once
Yeah,
it's,
just so we know how much low release, because that's a lot of fertilizer, a lot of nitrogen to put down at one time, unless it's a lot of it is slow release.
yeah.
So,
Unless it's 85% slow
Yeah,
release,
yeah.
that's gonna be one time bomb.
Should be closer to a pound and a half, should it not?
yeah.
Well, it depends on how much slow release product
Yeah.
is there.
It depends on the amount of slow release, but,
'Cause there are products you can put down 4 pounds a year, but it's all 100%
so
slow
they're
release.
gonna be there at 8 in the morning?
That's what they said. They usually are pretty prompt to be in there by 8, yeah.
So,
And I can ask that, Jim, before they start.
Yeah, I just would
I
be
will
nervous
ask.
about, for your sake, I mean, you'd be mowing every other day. If
Oh, I
you
know.
Put down 4 pounds a thousand,
I know,
and it's all quick, or even 50% quick, you'd be buried in mowing.
exactly.
So is there a point that you want him to stop tomorrow then? Because I'm kind of hear this going back and forth, and if we put it
Yeah,
down,
let
are
me
we in
know.
trouble?
I can make a phone call tonight
You
to
know,
the
Well, I
rep.
can be there at 8 and just talk to him and you if you want. I don't know if Jack can, because he's working, but, I mean, I just want to make sure you're not burying yourself.
I appreciate you being there, Jim, I really would.
Because they haven't been overly reliable, we know that, and you said that yourself.
Yeah, after looking
So-
through everything that you pointed out to me, I agree with
Yeah.
you 100%.
So it wouldn't be a bad idea to just make sure that you're not putting something down that you're gonna be paying for the rest of the fall, burying and mowing
Okay.
and, so.
Maybe take a step back and get a bid from another fertilizer application company, because they're not doing the job.
Hold off on this one tomorrow? I can do that by making a phone call
I'm
tonight.
just throwing that out there. I mean, the fields aren't gonna look any worse in 3 days.
Nope.
We're not losing much by 3 days, but that.
It's
I-
kind of disappointing, because, I used to work for them when they were ChemLawn, and, they were very good at keeping records and making, what you got was what you paid for, and so they obviously haven't been giving you what you're paying for, and
So
Obviously.
so
I-
it's kind of scary to keep with them.
I guess I would recommend maybe just have them cancel it, and then whoever, when we get out, do the work next week, they can fertilize at that time. Doesn't that make sense to do it when we are out there overseeding and preparing the field for next year?
Well, we're not talking about the infield right now, we're talking about
The
the
whole-
whole
We're talking
town.
about
Everything.
complex, yeah.
And really, if you're going by the True Green's numbers, they're only treating 12 acres of a 25-acre turfed area. How does that work?
25 acres.
20, well, I calculated it out.
About
today.
28 acres.
How much?
About 25 to 28 acres
Yeah,
Not
minus
a
the
playing field.
infield.
The playing fields?
of green space. Is that what your
I'm
calculations?
talking all the turfed areas. Is he only gonna apply on the playing fields down there?
No, all the turf gets,
All the turf,
yeah.
yeah. And I did some calculations, and I can share those with you, but I
Okay.
think it was 25 acres of turf.
Is that off the as-built the city has?
No, that's off of Google Maps.
Okay.
What is the cost tomorrow to do the,
I think if I recall, it's about $1,900.
I mean, maybe we
But
should wait, I mean, for
yeah.
that kind of money, if we
You're
don't
not
really
getting much slow release on that.
know what we're
Not at
getting.
19.
Slow release is the expensive part.
I know it is
I mean,
expensive, yeah.
If they were really putting down, like you said, 75% to keep him from being buried in turf,
Yeah,
mowing, it would cost you a heck of a lot more than that. So I'm getting
Yeah.
the feeling that they're putting down mostly fast. And if they put down 4 pounds,
Do you have some other fertilization companies that you'd recommend? That that's all they do is just fertilize?
I don't off the top of my
You
head.
don't?
Most-
Okay.
Most,
now those people that you guys talk to though, they do it too, right? I mean, you talk to a
Correct.
couple of different groups that are gonna do the
think-
infield.
The
Yeah.
couple groups they do.
Andy does it, I know
And
that.
yeah, and Andy
Yeah.
can do that next week if we
Yeah.
move forward with that.
Yeah.
With
And maybe what I
working
should
with
do is
them.
give him a call tomorrow.
Yeah, well, especially since you know that they haven't been doing what they've told you, so.
They haven't.
I mean, do we wanna go another $1,900 into them?
Well, I don't think I want to. I don't know about you, but I don't think I want to.
I think if we could put it down dry, it would be better
Jason?
too.
What is the cost to get everything back up in the next 2 weeks?
We have a couple bids, but it's ranging from like $2,500 to about $5,800. So we just got the last of the bids in today, so we're just looking at those and need to, by today, tomorrow, make a decision on how to move that forward. So that's the estimated range of an expense to to do the immediate repairs on Field 5 and to fix those concerns.
Just Field 5 alone?
Correct.
Yeah.
Terry?
Another point of clarification, is the bid just solely based on the cost, or is there other criteria when you guys choose whoever for the bid? Is it based on
It's based on.
credentials or cost, or how is that weighted?
That's what we're evaluating right now, being that there are the two different cost points, just doing a little more research. These are both recommendations that Jack has had and known in the industry. One of the companies, they just specialize in sports turf.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously they've done Minnetonka and Wayzata. They're working on the Forest Lake High Schools. So we are looking at credentials and experience. So, and I think that's a good point, I think, to kind of conclude the meeting this evening, just to bring everybody at the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission aware of the maintenance issues or concerns that have been brought to the table. I think we are completely focused on moving forward, so addressing the immediate concerns. And with that moving forward, I think it's just really evaluating the field maintenance plan. What recommendations are there? How do we improve that? Do we need more detail? Are there items missing or outdated, as have been referenced? And how is that followed through? I think one of the points of clarification I'd like to make is it seems, and I know that FLAW's had the longstanding great relationship with the city, scheduling of events and programs. I know there's a lot out there, and I'd like to have more understanding. I've asked to see, how many tournaments and things like that, so it'd be great to highlight that partnership and relationship. I think it's just maybe looking at Blue Diamond, and maybe it's time to look at more of a sports turf professional maintaining the complex. Magic Turfs, he's a professional in this specifically with sports turf, and he said nowadays you just really have to kind of build the fields to outlast kids, because they are so rough and tough on it. So it's different than lawn care and there's special treatments. And this other group, they specify and built a business just on sports turf because it is so different and there is that specialization. So I think maybe that's just where there's, I don't think there's any general concerns with flaw. I might just be looking at the maintenance plan and maybe looking at, like Jack recommended, potentially a specialized sports turf manager or company, because I feel like maybe that's a new trend in the last few years of focusing on that industry. And if there are groups that are available to do that, maybe that's the part of moving forward. So I think just working together, we are due to have a Fenway Advisory Board meeting here soon at the end of the month. So I can get end of month or early September, probably after Labor Day. So I think we can keep having those discussions and moving forward with a plan on how we proceed from here.
All right, wonderful. Personally, I have a ton more questions, but we'll leave that to a different day because we won't be here all night. Yeah, I think there's a lot more clarification, I'm sure, questions everyone has. So as of right now, the city is working with FLA on upgrading our systems, or are we just currently taking over and maintaining what we need to right now with the different companies that we've talked about?
I don't think we're taking over working with FLA to make sure that the fields are in playable condition for next season.
Right, so it sounds like we're working with FLA right now, at a city cost, and where would that cost come from out of our parks budget?
Well, we didn't ever say that it was out of the city. Al never said that.
No, I think that
That's been decided.
Al had
would've
agreed
spent
that-
the money if he did it, so, I don't think that's,
right.
Would that be a city cost, or, I guess that's a question.
We had talked about the field five infield repairs. Al had mentioned there was room in their budget for that improvement. So we're just working together on using a sports turf recommendation. We had that manager report out there, and we've had 2 other consultants out there. So it would be something I believe that would be billed back to FLA.
Okay, I apologize,
Either way, it's
I
gotta get
assumed
done.
it
Yeah.
wrong.
Either way, it's
We're
gonna get
doing
done. If we can't work it out, it's gonna get done. It's gotta get done like
Yep.
this week, so,
Yep,
if we have to spend the 5,000 or whatever, it'll come out of the park
That has to
maintenance
happen.
budget.
Park
If-
maintenance, okay.
If we
Yeah.
can work on it together, that's great.
All right.
And that's
Yep.
what we're hoping for.
and that was my fault, I assumed wrong, because when I heard the city was gonna do it, I thought that would have been a city cost. If there's any other questions, really quickly, if not, if any of the members of the council do wanna put in their 2 cents, if they have anything, if not, just anything else. Susan Yan, if you wanna mention something or two, if you can come up to the podium.
Just one thing I want to mention also, I will be talking with both Andy and Mike about the fertilization process out there. Both had already told me that, yes, that's something they could do, okay? As far as the mowing and stuff, they don't really have that. But from the mowing standpoint, they believe that's been done properly in what we've talked about. So I really think it all boils down to the proper fertilization and the chemicals that are being put into the ground. So,
Okay,
thank you.
yes, thank you.
Thanks, Al.
Hi, my name is Susan Young, and I'm an at-large member of the FLA Board of Directors. I think that there's not a really good understanding of what FLA has had to pick up in the last few years. Most of you know that the high school has gotten out of 7th and 8th grade sports, and that FLA has picked up many of those sports. Many of you know that we now have lacrosse in Forest Lake, both girls and boys lacrosse, spring and fall. They're trying to play in the same fields as our expanded football program is. Those fields are used 7 days a week, multiple hours per day. One of the challenges that FLA has is trying to support and make fields available to all of the sports that need it. Part of our problem is the high school took up many of their fields this year. And so sports that had tried to play on either school district fields or other fields were not able to. And so, again, a lot of those sports came to FLA. FLA is a volunteer organization. And I think that when we have work days out there, those of us that have bobcats and things like that, we bring them and have work days on the field. I know that I pulled a heck of a lot of weeds in the parking lot, and that I pulled a lot of wheelbarrow loads of material into the baseball complex. I believe that if the city believes that FLA is a premier facility, the city might look at the dollars that it spends compared to those other cities in our area, and quite frankly, our competitors, who also have sports facilities and the dollars that they put in as a city to those facilities. The city is leveraging FLA and its volunteers and the expertise that we have in helping kids develop through sports. And I think that there's an amazing partnership that, as Ms. McNamara said, has gone on for many, many, many years. But when FLA has looked to try and fund things to make the place better, looking at the scoreboards, looking at the concession stand, looking at other improvements, city funds are not available for those things. And so FLA has put that in. The other plug that I'll say, because there's a sort of an elephant out there, that FLA has gambling proceeds. One of the things that I hope that Al has presented in the past is the majority of the funds that we pay to the city of Wyoming as a tax, and to the state of Minnesota as a tax. Those gambling funds do not amount to very much by the time we pay the taxes. We try and make sure that every kid that wants to play a sport can play a sport, regardless of whether or not they have the dollars to pay for the sport. We don't want to turn anyone away. That is a huge mission of FLA. And so in terms of where our dollars go, they go to helping those sports. Final thing is, there's more than just baseball. There is modified pitch, there is slow pitch, there are adult leagues. There are a variety of baseball organizations that use those fields in addition to what people think of as baseball. I would welcome, as a board member, who also has a full-time job, any of you to come to a FLA meeting. I would welcome you with open arms. And I think that the rest of the FLA board would also do so. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any last comments from anyone tonight?
Tim,
Oh, yes.
sorry, Chair. I do have one other item if you wanted to indulge me, otherwise we could
For sure.
refer it to the September meeting. I don't know how.
Yeah, if you'd like to.
So, Chair, members of the commission, we've been discussing, and the council actually talked about this at their previous workshop. We've been working with Len Pratt, with Pratt Homes, on the possibility of a land exchange. Since we're talking about Fenway, this is a good opportunity to talk about this. With this particular parcel, so this is currently privately owned by Pratt, or Fenway Investments. And there's been a lot of different uses proposed here over time. There was a church at one point that was interested in. Leela evaluated it, but it never really was quite a fit because you have this wetland area here and, kind of bisecting the site that makes development not impossible there, but more difficult. Mini storages looked there. There was a residentially orientated use that looked there that the zoning wasn't a good fit for, but nothing's really landed. And the Fenway Investments also owns this parcel here, which used to be, or a lot of people will know it as the Walker Methodist parcel. At one point in time, pre-2011, there was a proposal for kind of a mixed-use, senior-orientated Cherrywood Point-like facility there. And that didn't take off, and so this is sat. He is looking at the possibility of working with Common Bond, which is an affordable housing developer. They have a tax credit application in on this parcel here, which is the bulk of the Walker Methodist parcel. And then you can kind of see in the light green, is the area that he's got available for his use for the most part. And would like to kind of take his villa-style single-level townhouse concept that he does and kind of introduced that into what is known as the Woodland Preservation Area for Headwaters. The council's most recent conversation on that property, after the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission previously recommended that site as a dog park, that wasn't something the council was interested in, and they wanted to explore the potential for the development of the site, but also kind of put the caveat on that it wasn't a site that was going to be actively marketed. We've been discussing this land exchange. This is a very in-demand product. This area here is zoned multifamily, so you know the multifamily use is a use that fits there. The council discussed this. They wanted to get some more feedback from Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission on you know, their thoughts on the potential for a land exchange at Fenway Fields. Commissioner Finneman on the EDA has looked at the Fenway Athletic Complex and just, you know, kind of in partnership with FLA, looked at some options for the development of the site. And of course, you know, you've got the 3 fields here, and this is what we'll call the Fenway Investments piece here. It does feature some more active development on its own. I mean, this is maybe a longer term concept. I think this could look a lot of different ways, and I don't think we're trying to get a final design for, you know, what this would ultimately look like. I think the bigger question is, you know, is this something you're interested in? You know, I know the last Parks, Trails, and Lakes master plan that was done, field space, athletic space was identified as a longer term issue, and as you can imagine, as we grow, and lacrosse and other field oriented sports become more preeminent, certainly we will be in need at some point of looking for a next location of, you know, for future field development. You know, and the school facilities have adjusted. They actually just took out 2 of their softball fields with the construction of the new parking lot and some of their facilities there. They're beefing up some of those facilities behind Century now, but there is a potential for that. And this plan isn't perfect. You know, you can't really go into the airport property here, and, you know, probably not gonna be able to hit into the airport property either as kind of a good practice, but, you know, this envisions a turf field. This property is currently under lease by the school district, and so you'd have to collaborate with them on whether or not they're interested in this, but it's just kind of like an idle area that they are parking buses at occasionally, so I think there are some users out there that would like to use it for overflow for the hockey arena, and that's a whole nother conversation, but I guess the bigger question is, do you want to reserve the potential for future field development? You know, this could be a turf field in a parking lot, it could be 1 or 2 baseball, or softball fields, whatever. I don't think you need to get married to one idea. I think you can put more thought into what that might look like in the future. I think the bigger question is, you know, is this a land exchange that the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission is interested in supporting? And you don't necessarily need to make a decision tonight. I'm not asking you to do that. I just want to kind of get the issue in front of you. Mr. Pratt is trying to proceed through a planning process with this, though, and so, you know, I think to the extent that if we could get, you know, maybe at your September meeting, some type of recommendation, yes, no, what information do you need from us to help you make a better decision? I think that's what we're looking for. Just, if you haven't seen this plan, I know the Fenway Advisory Committee has kind of chatted through this a little bit, but this also, you know, talks about, you know, potential new fields on what is now Airport Business Park property. You know, we don't need to be okay or not okay with that concept at this point. You know, I just think, you know, the council previously has talked about reserving that for future business park development. That's what those lots were originally developed for. And this then does have, this is kind of an awkwardly shaped parcel here, actually 2 parcels. And this would have a you know, kind of a multi-tenant industrial or office showroom type facility located there. So again, this is really a working draft. I think it's something that can evolve over time, but you know, at some point would be looking for feedback on whether or not the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission thinks that this is an exchange worth pursuing. The EDA will weigh in as well, and then ultimately roll up to the city council. The other thing we've asked out of Mr. Pratt as we consider this issue is, you know, if we're gonna develop this in any other different way, I mean, we kind of need to have the whole property laid out as it sits today. This is a larger area. It is wetland impacted, of course, but, you know, you have the parcel here, portion would be, you know, used here, but we do have the remainder as well, and so how do you access it? These are both wetlands here, so access, while the property fronts Forest Road, you know, providing access potentially might be problematic going through those wetlands there. So if we're gonna develop common access, we'd probably be looking here, and then you have to think about how that whole site lays out, if that's what people wanna do. So I guess I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you have thoughts on information you'd like to see provided to help you make a decision, I appreciate hearing that as well.
Any questions or feedback for Mr. Parrish?
We're giving up a chunk of a big, beautiful stand of woods in exchange for a wetland?
No, let me.
That we can't really develop we can't maximize the development of because of the wetland issue?
No, it isn't quite like that. It is wetland impacted for certain, and that has limited, you know, the ability to, look at the property, because of the location. Now, could you definitely have, you know, walking access to these fields? Absolutely. You know, I mean, I think these are, a field-oriented use is the type of thing you see in a lot of communities that, you know, can better, work with the wetlands on a site.
Is this a wetland that we can exchange for mitigated property?
Yeah,
Say,
these-
one of our other parks that may be a little low?
Well, I mean, if you wanted to do mitigation, you know, and kind of erode your field space potential, you could, you know, mitigate through here, you know, and expand that. But I don't think the airport's gonna wanna see that happen. I think they feel like they've got enough wet area around the airport and probably aren't looking to expand that.
I was suggesting filling that in and giving up some of our other property and allow that to go back to wetland. Behind
banking
McCullough
somewhere
Storage,
else.
yeah, that could perhaps be enhanced to be a greater wetland.
You can always do that. Traditionally, you know, if you are gonna fill, they are looking for, and we did do some of this on the airport property, they traditionally are gonna look for a mitigation opportunity that's proximate to the area, that's, you know, that's hydrologically connected, but you can, you know, you can buy credits for that matter. You don't have to go through, if you were looking to do that, I would suggest buying credits.
Yeah.
Because it's just much less complicated. And our experience with the wetland mitigation at the airport that we did, the maintenance that you have to go through and the auditing you go through with the watershed districts to make sure it establishes, it's a little out of our lane. You know, it's more than what we'd rather deal with, I think. But I think you could have, you know, certainly, you know, field or parking use here to sort of provide access. And then, you know, I think, you know, these wetlands are not insurmountable if, you know, to provide some level of walking access to these areas. This parcel is much larger, so if I remember the numbers right, I think we're talking about like 8 for 3 or 8 for 4. It's like 2 to 1 in terms of area that we're exchanging. So we are getting more acreage here than what is being proposed to be conveyed here. So that, you know, if you're looking at it from that perspective, and, you know, there is that, and I'll go through the process. I think one thing that it'd probably be helpful to do is just carve that out and just do net acreage on both, and people have to understand sort of the net acre for net acre exchange.
How long will Pratt hold off before they decide they don't wanna wait any longer and they'll move on to something else?
Well, you know, I mean, they can carry this property, they have for quite some years. You know, certainly, then you're gonna get what you get there. I think, this part of this development isn't integral for him to sell this piece. I mean, he's already got an agreement on this piece with Common Bond. He can sell this piece, you know, assuming it goes through the planning process and is approved or some use like that. You know, he'll be able to sell this property for some multifamily use, you know, at some point. That's consistent with the current zoning. I think he's just trying to expand the development here because he feels like he can't put the product type back here, single level villas, you know, and we wouldn't want that back there, but it is probably more of a fit in this area. So I think there's that dimension of the conversation.
But the woods essentially becomes landlocked because of the wetland, or would that,
Well,
they'd have
right
to
now,
come
the
up with some
woods,
fixes on that?
minus access through Pratt's property like he envisions here, right? So the public
Yeah.
access kind of comes like this.
Yeah.
And then provides access to the wooded area. Minus that, and I don't know why we did this at the time or whatever, it probably seemed like a great idea at the time, because we platted this property as a city. So this is self-inflicted, but, so we have, you know, you have this woodland preservation area, and it probably wasn't a big deal because it was the woodland preservation area, you maybe weren't thinking about it from a development perspective at that time. But you have this band of wetlands here that prevents access, and then you have this band of wetlands here that, you know, is part of your parcel. This is not you and is actually now a developed, second phase of Forest Oaks. So you're either gonna mitigate wetlands to get back here and develop, or you're gonna access through the Pratt parcel.
One question I have is, are they both, have they always been residential plots? Both of the plots? Or were they, were they all supposed to be commercial?
No, well, this is zoned industrial. So, you know, we have a list of industrial uses that you can consider there. Manufacturing, mini storage, things like that. This with the Headwaters PUD is zoned multifamily. So you have multifamily zoning here. Actually, you have industrial zoning here. But again, the Headwaters PUD, so the underlying zoning for all this property is industrial. So when it was acquired, it was industrial. When the Headwaters PUD came in, though, they overlaid some different uses. And the use overlaid here, of course, was multifamily, industrial, you know, this piece stayed industrial, and this was sort of woodland preservation, you know, within the PUD. So that didn't speak to anything different than that. But the underlying zoning is still industrial on this parcel. But not a good fit there probably, right? I mean, now you all of a sudden you've got these multifamily structures here and up to the park, and, you know, doesn't seem like industrial wants to happen there. So.
Is there a problem keeping it woodland preserve?
Not
How many
necessar-
woodland preserves does the city have?
Well, we have lots of woods, but they're in private ownership in a lot of instances, of course, you know. So, yeah, I mean, that certainly is, certainly is an option that you can explore. That isn't what the last discussion on the property was.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I mean, there's dollars, cents involved here too, in exchanges.
So, your question tonight was, what does the Parks Commission think of the path to Fenway Fields, if we're interested in it?
Are you
Is that
interested in that land exchange? You know, because it would be an addition to the footprint of Fenway Fields. It'd provide the opportunity for some additional field space, and, you know, the way I kind of look at it personally is, you know, if we don't develop some field space, you know, adjacent to Fenway, wherever that might happen, you know, if it's on these parcels, which, you know, again, there's a development, same kind of development conversations that happen there, what's highest and best use. But I also really do think that, you know, at some point, you know, we're in a situation where, where's the next athletic complex?
Right.
You know, I mean, you have to think about that.
I see.
And, you know, it's, I don't know when that happens, you know, when, you know, if soccer were to come back today, and let's, you know, they obviously went to, you know, Chisago Lakes area, you know, or Lakes United to belong to that club. Soccer came back today, we would be in an inadequate field situation, you know, because of, you know, as lacrosse has expanded, you know, we would definitely be exporting a lot of that activity out of the community.
For the land trade, pretty much, would we ever be able to sell that lot in the future if we decided to, or would that be park dedicated land?
This parcel,
Yes.
you know, the way you would take ownership to it would allow for the sale of it.
Okay.
You know, park dedication or dedication of parkland happens at plating. And so, you would retain flexibility with it if you did all of a sudden get sort of the, you know, the golden goose showed up and said, we really want to do something here, you'd have that flexibility. It wouldn't be like some of our park dedicated land where it's dedicated on the plat, and you can't convey it to another use.
Okay. Any questions or feedback from Mr. Parrish? I personally am in favor of it, just because I know that we could sell that plot if someone really ever did have a desire for it. I know we kind of do have the thought process of lessening possibly some of our park spaces in Forest Lake, and knowing that this could always be an option to sell if we really needed to in the future is an option. Plus, I think it'll fit perfect with Fenway Fields if in the future we do need to have that space. So that's my personal opinion on it.
I'd agree with Tim. I would be for it.
Any other? Nothing else, I believe.
I'll have to think about it.
We'll,
Yeah.
we'll put it on the
I don't have an
September
opinion
agenda.
right now.
Yeah.
If you need any other additional information before our September meeting, just let me know and I can send that over. If you have any other thoughts or comments on that, to make a decision in September.
Perfect. All right. Now, before we adjourn, I do have one more question for Mr. Parrish since he's here tonight. Can you give us a quick 2-3 minute update on the Arbor Ridge complex with the exercise equipment and how that is working in with parks in the future? I know.
Yeah. Well, you can go work out right now, so you have that opportunity.
I move there tomorrow, so I'm excited for it.
Well, I'll expect to see you there as I
There
drive
we
by
go.
in the morning. So Arbor Ridge is opening up. Well, I think they're actually they're allowing people to move in now, but their official, open is September 1st, and a very successful project ultimately. They are 100% leased day one opening up, and so you don't really see that on projects, and so that's kudos to him. And he's actually got another property in Forest Lake under contract that he is working on developing. So Mr. Lambert will be back. And the council did talk about that particular piece, though. If you remember, the original structure was for us to have it as a distinct, separate use. It was really a function of the fact that the PUD required 2 uses in order to have a planned unit development on the property. There's a couple ways to get to PUD, but that was how he had to get there on this one. We originally talked about the trail around to kind of have a loop trail, and I know there's lots of opinions on that. I'm kind of a fan of loop trails. Other people kind of wondered where it was going and, all that. And so we moved away from the loop trail around the edge of the property and decided to focus on the establishment of a recreational use for public use. And that was established. The idea there is that he would own it, maintain it, get it up and running for a 2-year period of time, and then anything thereafter, it was a kind of a parklet of the city, and we would then be obligated to either maintain that in the future or say, you know what, nobody's using it, we're waiting for Tim to come out and use and it's not coming out, and so we're in a situation where we're not going to repair it. So you'd make that call. The council, consistent with some of the discussion you just had about, we're not, we're trying to maintain what we have. We're trying to invest in premier parks, Fenway, Lakeside, Kuehlenkamp, probably missing one, Belts. Trying to focus on some of our core parks. Thought maybe we don't want to own this thing in the long term or have that responsibility. So that easement was adjusted, and now it's a 2-year responsibility of the developer, and then after that, it'd be kind of up to his discretion on whether the public can or can't use that, and so on. So he's indicated he's open to allowing the public to use it after that period of time, as long as it's not, being done in a negative way to his property. Mm-hmm. But there's not necessarily anything that, we can compel that use after the 2 years. So.
Right. So he would own that equipment after 2 years.
That's correct.
Forever,
So the public
going forward.
use is, not necessarily informally, but formally extinguished at that point in time. I think what it, had the council do is think about, we went through a lot of gymnastics and there are a lot of them are here, they can say, I'm trying to speak for them, but, you know, they can certainly chime in, but he had to go through a lot of gymnastics to get the PUD designation, and I think we're gonna take a look at what are our thresholds for PUD, and is that what we're trying to encourage or not? And are there other mechanisms that still get great development to happen, but things that maybe are a little more in alignment with what we wanna see?
Wonderful. All right,
So he's saying that Aaron could come work out with you,
perfect.
For 2
We'll see you
years.
tomorrow
I'm
morning.
just gonna honk when I.
and then
Yeah,
maybe not
exactly.
after that.
Outside or what?
It is outside, so if you drive by Arbor Ridge, right on 8th Street, right off the intersection down here, you'll see there's 4 or 5 pieces of equipment out there, so. Wonderful. Any other questions or discussion for tonight's meeting? If not, we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
Second.
All right, motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.